Hey, hello again. My name is Marco Reed. That is, yeah, that is my name, and I'm just here to talk to you today. I'm 28 years old, and I've been teaching English online as a tutor. I graduated with a bachelor's degree, um, and I'm not, all that smart, all that intelligent, but I really care about my relationships and relationships with other people. I've done a lot of research on psychology, read things from John Gottman and his institution, and I just have something that I feel like is really important to share with everybody in terms of language and the use of language and and our personal identity and how maybe we can be nicer to each other and kinder to each other. So the title of this video is "What Papa Meat and Critical YouTubers Are Missing," and I kind of wrote down on my phone in my notes what I want to talk about. So I'm just going to read from my notes because I feel like this is kind of important. So most of us have narcissistic traits, and all of us can suffer narcissistic collapse, which is the collapse of your identity. Identities are fragile, which is why people experience imposter syndrome, or they carry bizarre prejudices about the people around them in order to distinguish themselves. It's easy for someone to root their identity in an insecurity, so long as it is a shared insecurity amongst a number of people. For instance, loving a specific sports team or an idol to the point of extreme neuroplastic outbursts, when the idea of who or what the team or nation is changes for the individual who has created an extended attachment onto said group. And like a neuroplastic outburst would be like crying, crying a lot. Or I don't know, like flipping a car over and setting on fire, right? That would be a neuroplastic outburst. Your brain would react to, either the loss or the victory. So they can passionately cry during the loss or manically celebrate and destroy things during a victory. This has to do with their fragile sense of self more than anything the team, group, or nation is actually doing. It represents a bias, confirmation, or break from reality and triggers a fight or flight response, a euphoric feeling of safety or mania, or an immediate and intense feeling of depression and mental splitting. I'm sure some of us have experienced this when we were voting for the first time. This is the reason we see so many people acting out in irrational and inexplicable ways to events as mundane as Taylor Swift's birthday. Labeling one person a narcissist doesn't make much sense if you are only measuring a few narcissistic reactions, because that is how we maladaptively form our sense of self, in a selfish and conceited way, in order to survive a selfish and conceited world. Everyone has these maladaptations to their environment because we all need some level of prejudice when going through the world to feel fully secure. For instance, I don't often walk in front of groups of men standing around with my partner, right? And it's not that they're inherently predators, but from my experience, it is more than likely, and having that prejudice against groups has kept me from several beatings in my life. At least I think. I won't know, because in my own mind, I avoided a fight. In that same way, losing a game or watching your team lose is a confirmation of your own weakness, whereas victory is a confirmation of your own power. It isn't true in the least, it doesn't change your standing in the world, but it is a physical sensation that creates hysteria, depression, anxiety, and mania. Criticism itself is a narcissistic response to a relationship and damages it by accusing an individual of being a definite source of negativity. Since humans are indefinite by nature or ever-changing, right? You aren't the same as you were yesterday, and neither am I. We naturally have a visceral and aggressive reaction to definite statements about ourselves and others, especially the ones we love. The difference in language is simple, really, but difficult to distinguish in practice, right? A non-critical statement to a spouse or partner, for example, that would garner self-improvement would be, "I feel hurt when I see the socks on the floor, and I notice that it happens often. Would you be willing to pick them up to make things easier for me?" A critical statement would be, "You always leave the socks on the floor and it is disgusting. Why do you do this?" Right? So the first statement doesn't define the person in a critical or extreme way and sticks to how the speaker feels. This is effective because feelings are not definite and invite a chance for change in the future. The second statement is definitive and naturally invokes resistance in the other person. It is judgmental and accusatory and will not result in forward progress for the person who is accused. Critical YouTube channels are popular because that form of narcissistic expression is generally engaged in under the premise of keeping people safe. However, it fails on every level because it makes the receiver of the criticism a target to be attacked and not a friend to be helped. In other words, it dehumanizes them and makes them an object of obsessive disgust. Disgust is an emotion that seeks order and peace in the world where there is none, and it keeps us safe. You don't lick the floor, right? Or you don't eat poop because that could kill you, right? But it is not useful when confronting a person whose relationship you value. It damages relationships and shames the person you are speaking with into a corner, where for them to preserve a sense of self, the most immediate response is to vehemently reject and fight the accusation or run away in order to maintain some form of attachment to the criticizer, right? So English, specifically English and other languages, it's a tricky language because it uses many definitives. For that reason, therapists suggest focusing on I statements, keeping things in the moment, and momentary means relationships have a chance to progress. It makes losses easier to take and gains easier to thank the other person for, right? And that's the end of what I was writing, and that's the heart of what I want to say, that criticism objectifies someone as an act of trying to define who and what they are. And it's not true to the human experience because we are not definable. And that's the tricky thing with identity. Identity, the whole cause of identity is to define ourselves as one thing. And it limits our flexibility, it limits our ability to adapt to the world. It causes something like the flea effect, where you don't jump as high as you actually can because you're used to the parameters that you set for yourself in order to survive. And it's really difficult to see that, especially if you're abusing substances, or if you're emotionally dysregulated, or if you're broke like I am, if you don't have much money like I am, or in that state right now. And it's really difficult to pull yourself out of these emotional states of having your identity collapse, really having your identity collapse, having your narcissistic sense of self collapse, right? So narcissistic collapse can be felt on many levels, right? It's not just an extreme reaction that comes from somebody that's diagnosed with the narcissistic disorder. It also happens in everyday life, when we're just going about our day and people don't act the way we think they're supposed to act, right? We label them as something and we think there's a way that they need to act or they're supposed to act. And if they don't fulfill our idea of who they are according to what the world has set up for us in our own environment, then we feel some sort of aggression or tension around that person, right? And I'm experiencing this right now, interviewing, doing my best to introduce myself to people as a rational and kind person. It's not easy. Especially because, just in my own life, I've made a lot of mistakes. I haven't always been good, and I'm doing my best right now to overcome that, right? And I'm sure a lot of other people are also doing their best to overcome that, So really, I think it's important for us, like spiritually, right, to not resort to being accusers simply because it's profitable, because it's not healthy. It creates an unhealthy and toxic environment, and it's really easy for people to subsist within that environment. It's really easy for people to gather in that environment in clusters and to feed off of that negative energy, because we all have a negative implicit bias to the world. We pretty much, our first instinct is to react negatively to new information, and that's because we want to stay safe, right? We that fight or flight is right there. It's right there to save us in any moment, in a hair's breadth of a moment. So that's my thought for today. And I'm not going to edit this video much. I just wanted to say thank you guys for watching, if you did watch, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you're a YouTuber that's super critical, I hope you can think of a new way to make money, because you're not serving people around you, you're really hurting them. You're damaging not only the relationships of the person you're criticizing, but you're damaging the minds of the people that are watching your video, and you're souring their hearts. And that's not to accuse you, it's just to sort of declare out loud, like, this is a souring of the heart. And you know, I love Papa Meat. I watch all his videos. I watch you, bro. You know, I think you're great, and I'm sorry to call you out like this, or, you know, call you out like this. I'm not really trying to call you out. I'm just sort of saying this to say, critical content on YouTube is super popular, and I watch a lot of it. You know, I even watch that you know, Jacob, whatever, that guy that does the financial audit, right? I don't really know his name really, but and that's because I don't pay too much attention. I just sort of watch. You know, but you know, I like his content too, and it's interesting stuff because people are going through a lot, and I'm curious about their stories, and that's really the reason I watch, because I'm curious about people's stories, and I'm curious about what's going on in the world. I'm not really connected through social media at all, so I have to kind of watch this stuff to keep up with you guys. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it is damaging, and maybe like rethinking the model for success could be beneficial to your community and to your own minds, you know? Potentially. I mean, I don't know. I also like the critical content. I like Josh Johnson and all those guys. So it's nice. It's nice to see that sort of comedy. You know, it's nice to see that sort of lightheartedness. At the same time, it is damaging to the relationships of the person being criticized, right? It is damaging to them. So that's something just to keep in mind, if anything. If you don't want to change your model of behavior, just to keep in mind for the future, that it is, you know, creating success through a damaging process, and that's okay. There's a lot of destructive processes that garner people a lot of money in the world. It's just you have to ask yourself at the end of the day if you're okay with making the world an unhealthy place, and if you are, congratulations. You know, or, you know, any other fast food chain that exists. I'm probably gonna bleep that out, but congratulations to you, because, you know, yeah, we're all eating the fast food, the fast fashion, the fast everything. Everything is fast, right? And criticizing is definitely the fastest way to destroy a relationship and to gain, you know, I don't know, notoriety in the community, notoriety in the community, right? To be noticed. So that's all I want to say. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Bye-bye.